Before we get into today's game, I want to talk about the sponsors for my channel. Card Conduit is the best way to sell your unused magic cards. Whether you've got a box of unsorted bulk, or a complete and alphabetized set, there's a great option for everyone. With a payout averaging 19% better than using any one buy list, and that's after fees are applied, you can rest assured you'll get the best bang for your buck. If you're a skeptic like me, their easy customer service and detailed reports make the whole interaction transparent and safe. And if you use the affiliate link in the description below, or the promo code MTGMUDSTA, you'll save 10% off their fees. And 401 Games, Canada's one-stop shop for trading cards, board games, and hobby supplies. Not to mention an easy-to-use and great online buy list. And if you use the promo code MTGMUDSTA, your first purchase of MTG Sealed and Singles will be 5% off. And Dragon Shield, the strongest sleeves for your strongest deck. So be sure to use the code MUDSTA or the affiliate link down below to save 5% on your next order. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's patron shoutout goes to Marcus. Thanks Marcus for supporting me through Patreon. In today's game, I have borrowed Eric's Zoraline deck. Eric is playing Muerra, Kuz is playing Finneas, and Desmond is playing his Nekusar deck. For openers, I keep Fel the Profane, Etchings of the Chosen, Moonrise Cleric, Elisil Core Sadistic Pilgrim, Mortify, Windswept Heath, and Verdant Catacombs. Eric is playing his Muerra deck, keeping Mountain, Reliquary Tower, Raging Ravine, Soul Ring, Bloodroot Apothecary, Scrap Shooter, and Stocking the Pantry. Kuz is bouncing onto the scene with Finneas, keeping Carrot Cake, Desert of the True, Sheffet Dunes, Regal Bunnycorn, Druid of the Spade, Scoot Swarm, and Seedborn Muse. Desmond's Nekusar deck is going to have us drawing some cards and taking some damage with Psychosis Crawler, Vampiric Tutor, Sangromancer, Ral Moonstone Mage, Swamp, Megrim, and Island. I win the die roll and start us off. I draw, and then play a Verdant Catacombs, cracking it and losing one, going to find a land, and passing. Eric just plays a tapped Raging Ravine. Kuz no draws, and plays a Desert of the True. Desmond just plays a Swamp. I play a Windswept Heath, and follow the same example of turn 1, cracking it and losing 1. Eric's got a Reliquary Tower per turn, and he casts Soul Ring. In response, Desmond casts Vampiric Tutor and loses 2 to put a card on top. Eric then continues his turn by casting Bloodroot Apothecary, and he gives Desmond a treasure token when it enters. Eric then cracks his own treasure token to help cast Stocking the Pantry and pass his turn. Kuz no draws and plays a Sheffet Dunes, and then casts Carrot Cake. He scries 1, bottoms it, and makes a rabbit token. Desmond draws and plays a Blood Crypt untapped, taking 2. He casts a Soul Ring, and then follows it up with Ral, Monsoon Mage, and passes. I've got my third fetch land with a Flooded Strand, cracking it and losing 1 for an untapped Godless Shrine, taking 2 more. I then cast Black Market Connections, which is suddenly much worse because of the Apothecary, and pass turn. Eric draws and plays a Mountain. He then casts Muerra. Going to combat, he swings the Apothecary at Desmond, and Desmond takes 3 damage and gains 2 poison counters. After that, Eric passes. Kuz draws and plays a Windswept Heath, cracking it and losing 1 to find Savannah. He then plays Finneas, and once his commander resolves, plays a Seasoned Warren Guard and passes to Desmond. Desmond draws, plays an island, and has enough for Nekusar. He then cracks the treasure token, gaining 2 more poison counters, and he uses it to cast Bloodchief Ascension. I draw 2 and lose 2 to Nekusar, and I'm going to save everyone some time by saying that everyone does moving forward so I don't have to repeat this, and then make a treasure token from Black Market Connections, losing another 1. I then cast Mortify, destroying the Bloodchief Ascension, and passing to Eric. Eric draws and makes a green off Muerra in his main phase. He then uses it to cast Beastmaster Ascension, and he plays a Terramorphic Expanse, and then casts Bellow. Eric gains 3 life since he's expended 4 at this point, and he moves to combat. He swings the Bloodroot Apothecary at me this time, and I take the 3 and gain the poison counters. After that, Eric cracks a Terramorphic and passes. Kuz no draws his cards and casts a Scoot Swarm in his main phase. He plays Desert of the Indomitable and makes an insect token, and then goes to combat. he swings Finneas at me, and the Seasoned Warren Guard at Eric. Kuzno gets to put counters onto his tokens and rabbits, and then draws off having 10 total power. Eric and I then both take the hit, and Kuzno passes. Desmond draws 2 and plays a Watery Grave untapped. He then casts Magus of the Wheel, and follows up with Megrim and passes. I draw my 2, lose 2, and lose another one to make a treasure token. I then cast Ilias Ilkor, and then a Rune Lurker Bat, and pass to Eric. Eric loses some and draws 2, and then makes a red and a green off of Muerra. He then uses the mana to help cast Wandertail Mentor, and then follows up with a Baker's Bane duo. He then plays a Scrap Shooter, gifting me a card, and Eric destroys Megrim when it enters. He's also gained 3 life at this point from expending 4, and he passes after that. Kuzno's turn has him playing a Hostile Desert, making another insect token from the Scoot Swarm. He then plays Season to the Burrow, and exiles the Magus of the Wheel, and returns Windswept Heath to play. The Heath entering makes a Scoot Swarm copy, and he then cracks it, losing 1 to find an untapped Temple of the Garden, losing 2 more, and he gets to make some more Scoot Swarm tokens. Going to combat, he swings Finneas at me, and pumps his rabbits and tokens, plus draws a card. I decide not to block, just taking the 2, and he passes after that. Desmond's turn is quite quick as he draws his 2, casts Sangromancer, and passes to me. I draw 2, lose 2, and lose another one to make a treasure from Black Market Connections. I am so far behind that I want to reset the board, so I crack my 3 treasures, gaining 6 poison counters, and use them to help cast Austere Command, picking the 2 modes to destroy all creatures. But Kuzno has a sneaky mana type to counter it. I then embarrassingly play a Profane Mire tapped afterwards, and pass turn. Eric draws his cards and casts a Sunbird's Invocation. He triggers his Expend 4, gaining 3, and pumping his 2 creatures, and then plays a Rolling Hamsphere. This gets Eric a Thunderfoot Baloth off the Sunbird's Invocation trigger, and he then goes to combat. He swings out at Kuzno and gets 7 counters on his Beastmaster Ascension, and then makes 3 hamsters from the Hamsphere and shoots the original Scoot Swarm. Eric also remembers that he expended 8 at this point, and exiles 2 lands off the top. Kuzno runs the numbers at this point and realizes that he's dying, and he blocks Muerra and Bellow, and then casts Court of Calling, putting 6 into the X. He remembers he runs Rexage at this point, and realizes he can take out the Beastmaster Ascension, and gets to live. This has him then taking 22, and gaining 2 poison counters, and Eric kills Finneas, and 2 Scoot Swarm tokens with the attackers. Desmond also gains 15 life from the Sangromancer, and Eric gets to draw 2 off his artifact or enchantments connecting. In his post-combat main phase, Eric then plays a Forest from Exile, and passes turn. Kuzno's got a Bountiful Promenade for his turn, making another Scoot Swarm. He then casts Intangible Virtue, and then Seedborn Muse. Moving to combat, he swings 2 insect tokens at Desmond, 2 rabbits at me, and the Seasoned Warren Guard at Eric. Eric blocks with a Scrap Shooter, while Desmond and I take our 4, but Desmond then gains 6 life as the creatures go to the graveyard from trading. After that, Kuzno passes. Desmond draws 2, and plays Wheel or Deal on each of us, and Kuzno cracks his Carrot Cake to gain 3 and not die. We then each discard our hand, and draw 7, and take 7, with Desmond losing his coin flip from Ral, and takes 1. However, Desmond also gains a ton of life from the Sangromancer, and he then plays a Bad River, and passes. I draw my 2, lose 2, and then lose 1 to make a treasure. I play a Command Tower, and cast Starsea Mentor, and then go to my end step. I choose Eric for the Mentor trigger, and he discards a card, and with that, I pass. Eric recasts his commander in his main phase, and he gets his 2 expend triggers from his raccoons that are on the board. He then plays a Lotus Cobra for turn. He follows up playing a mountain, and makes a green mana from the Cobra trigger, and then casts Arcane Signet, hitting his expend 8. He exiles his top 2, and casts a Keen-Eyed Curator. He then crews up the Hamsphere with Muerra, and goes to combat. Before going to declare attacks, Desmond casts a Baleful Mastery, exiling the Hamsphere, and has Kuzno drawing a lethal card off of it. but Kuzno decides before he's going out to help the table, and he uses Paw Patch formation and blows up the Sunbird's invocation. He then casts Second Harvest and makes a bunch of tokens, and then taps his Chef at Dunes to die. With Kuzno dead, Desmond has to give the Baleful Mastery card to someone else, so I draw one and lose one, and Desmond also loses one to the Ral flip. Continuing combat, Eric then swings out at Desmond, and he takes the 26 and gains 2 more poison counters. After that, Eric passes. Desmond draws his 2 and cracks the Bad River for a swamp. He then plays the 1 ring. He then taps it to draw a card and puts a counter onto it, and then casts Grim Tutor. Desmond then passes, and we move to my turn. I draw my 2, lose 2, and then lose 1 to make a treasure. I play a swamp for turn, and cast a Valley Rock Caller, followed by a Starlit Soothsayer. Moving to my end step, I'm forced to give Eric the Mentor trigger, and he discards a card, and Desmond gains 3 from it. Eric also exiles the Grim Tutor with the Curator on my end step, and Desmond then remembers that he has a Ral trigger from the Grim Tutor, and actually wins the flip and transforms it. Eric draws his cards and makes 4 mana from Muerra, which he then uses to help cast Radiant Riches. He makes some treasures, and then casts Tendershoot Dryad, using the treasure token so that it'll get Cascade. Eric hits an Innkeeper's Talent off of it, and then exiles his top 2 to Muerra, and gains 3 from the expend triggers. Eric then continues, paying to exile a land, an enchantment, and an instant from Desmond's graveyard to turn on his Keen-Eyed Curator's buff. He then plays a Game Trail, revealing a forest, and makes some mana from the Lotus Cobra. He then uses that to help cast a Talisman. Eric then plays a Wear Down, gifting me a card, and destroying Desmond's Soul Ring and my Black Market connections. This has me drawing a card and losing 1 life. Eric then decides to skip combat since Desmond has protection from everything, and he passes turn. Desmond loses 1 to the ring, and draws his 2. He then activates the ring to draw another 2, and plays a Reliquary Tower. He then upticks Ral. Desmond then plays Peer into the Abyss, and targets Eric to kill him, with Eric cracking a food in response. Eric gains his 3, however he still can't survive, so Eric does some damage on the way out, using a treasure to help cast Beast Within and targets Nekusar. This gets him a Cascade, and he reveals until he hits a Trailblazer Scout, which doesn't save him. Without an attack on me though, Desmond just passes, and during his end step, I cast Path to Exile and exile the Sangromancer on his end step. I draw, play a Plains, and go to combat. I swing the Rune Lurker Bat and Mentor at Ral, and everything else goes at Desmond. I drain some life from the Valley Rock Caller, and Desmond declares no blocks. This has me taking out Ral and dealing some damage. In my post-combat main phase, I then cast Farewell to exile all artifacts and pass turn. Desmond draws and plays Psychosis Crawler, and then plays Winds of Change. I respond by sacrificing the Rune Lurker Bat to help cast Flare of Fortitude, and we then each wheel our hands. Had I actually read the card though, I would have realized that Winds of Change shuffles and doesn't discard. And Desmond then plays a Smoldering Marsh and passes turn. I've got another Plains for turn, and finally cast my commander with Zoraline, paying the 2 extra life and mana when it enters. This brings back the Voice of the Blessed, and I gain a life from Elisil Core, which puts a counter onto the voice. I swing out at Desmond, and drain some more life, and he declares no blocks. In my post-combat main phase, I play a Wayfarer's Bauble, and then go to my end step. I target Desmond with the Starseer Mentor, and he takes 3 instead of discarding, and I pass. Desmond draws and deals 1 with the Psychosis Crawler, and then plays a Shivan Reef. He then recasts Nekusar, and passes. During his end step, I crack the Wayfarer's Bauble to find a Plains. I draw 2 and lose 2, and go to combat. I swing out at Desmond again this time, draining him again, and pay for the Zoraline trigger, returning Etchings of the Chosen, and naming Bat as it comes in. Desmond then takes the hit, dropping to 22. After combat, I cast Talisman of Hierarchy, and then Ripples of Undeath, and pass. Desmond draws 2 and deals 2 to me. He then plays a Mana Confluence and casts Phyresis onto Nekusar. But I'm ready with a Swords to Plowshares and exile his commander. Desmond then gains some life from this, but continues his turn by casting a Bone Miser. He then main phases a Terminate and takes out my Voice of Blessed, but has to take 2 from his mana sources, and after that, he passes. I draw and mill 3 from the Ripples of Undeath, paying 1 and 3 life to bring back the Valley Quest Caller. I then play a Plains and cast the Quest Caller and go to combat. I swing out a Desmond again and pay for the Zoraline trigger, bringing back a Moonrise Cleric. I gain 1 when it enters, and continue to drain Desmond with the Rock Caller, and Desmond blocks the Rock Caller finally, but takes the rest, and drops down to 4. With the Rock Caller dying, he then takes 1 from Ellis. I then sacrifice 3 bats to the Etching the Chosen, and deal the final 3 to Desmond, and manage to scrape out a win, and we move to the next game. Game review time. This game was actually kind of long. It was about 1 hour and 40 minutes, and it had a lot of brand new commanders from Bloomborough, which hopefully you're excited to see, considering by the time this is out, we're probably in Duskmourn spoiler season, so yeah. But yeah, they were great. I like the new commanders. I think out of all of them, the one that I was least impressed with was probably Finneas. Unfortunately for Kuzno, as much as he loves rabbits, Finneas just didn't really get there. His go-wide strategy was just kind of struggling. I think he missed out on a couple key cards that he needed, and drawing 1 card on combat just wasn't helping him out too much. On the flip side, Eric playing Muerra, which is like Raccoon Kindred typal, was surprisingly good, and a lot of it I think rested on the fact that just getting free mana is sweet. The expend abilities were good, gaining life is not bad, and getting some cards off the top happened I think twice or 3 times, but not really too much to write home about. But yeah, Bellow is a raccoon, which works really well, and the deck just performed admirably, I think. Eric got to showcase a lot of the new cards, and I thought that was kind of cool. I had borrowed Eric's Zoraline deck, which honestly, sitting down and playing it, I have a pretty decent feeling that it's not the best, but it's kind of grindy. You know, like the fact that I was in that game for as long as I was, and after that completely debilitating and still very triggering to watch Mana Tithe, I still managed to claw my way back into the game with the activated ability on attack and entering, or I guess it's actually triggered, sorry. Yeah, that speaks volumes to how powerful the deck can be. There is a lot of life gain in the deck, and that Rock Caller was certainly keeping me in it thanks to Nekusar trying to take me down. Nekusar, I know a lot of people feel that commanders nowadays have to be very, very good because they outclass older ones. I think Nekusar is still a very good commander. The cards that are getting added to the pool that you can basically play with him nowadays are even better and more efficient. And as you saw, if I didn't have a piece of removal like several times, I think I was dead. I really had to keep mana up and had to keep pieces of removal or ways to disrupt him, and Desmond did a good job keeping me on my toes. Despite the fact that he had that massive life total, unfortunately I was just able to whittle him down just through sheer volume, and that's just the way sometimes it goes. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.